We're back here on HQ Spotlight on CBS Sports Network. 8 head coaching vacancies in the NFL right now, and one on this list that is just weird to see. Ravens' beloved franchise head coach John Harbaugh out in Baltimore. It cannot be easy to let a guy like Harbaugh go, that's for sure, but it's all business, I guess. So what are the challenges that really come with parting ways from a franchise head coach? Let's go ahead and get a former NFL executive perspective as we say hello to our own Amy Trask. Amy, it's so great to see you. Walk us through the difficulties and challenges that come with firing a franchise head coach like John Harbaugh.
Well, presumably the difficulty comes even before you fire the coach. As you work yourself through that discussion. I've shared before on HQ that I think very highly of Steve Bisciotti. So presumably he thought this through well. Now, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, whether there were fractures within the organization, whether there were differences of opinion, but I do believe that Steve would have thought this through and asked himself and answered the question that I believe must be asked and answered before firing a coach, particularly one like John Harbaugh, which is, and do what? You had a coach who in 18 years with you as your head coach had only 3 losing seasons. 6 of the last 8 seasons went to the playoffs. So, this isn't an easy, okay, let's just find another head coach to replace him. He's going to be hard to replace. Again, don't know what was going on behind the scenes that may have prompted this decision, but I do think those are, as is said, very, very big shoes to fill. Maybe Steve has an idea. If not, presumably he did think this through well. I hope he did for Ravens fans.
Baltimore, one of 8 head coaching vacancies right now in the NFL. Let's zero in on another team who's in search of their next head coach, but also a new GM as well, the Atlanta Falcons. When you're trying to fill 2 of the most important roles, why is a perfect marriage so crucial from your experience, Amy? What worked, what didn't?
Well, I don't believe a perfect marriage is crucial. When you work for an organization, your responsibility is to that organization. You don't need to be best buddies with everyone with whom you work. You don't need a marriage, as is said. You need to do your best to work with whomever is in the organization, to do your best for the organization. That's your job. And, when I hear GMs saying, I want to bring in my guy, well, you know what? Don't worry about bringing in your guy. Bring in the right guy. And I use this example. If you're hired as a GM and Vince Lombardi is the head coach, guess what? He's your guy. Because for you to get rid of a good coach or turn down the opportunity to hire a head coach because you don't think he's your guy or you can be besties, well, then you're not fulfilling your responsibility to the organization. Not everyone who works for a business has to be friends. They do have to work together for the best of the organization.
We were just talking to our own Logan Ryan, who suggested that John Harbaugh actually might be a really good fit in Atlanta. But Amy, this coaching cycle, the job search in the NFL, very interesting because right now we actively have coaches interviewing for other jobs while they're preparing for the playoffs with their current team. Do you think the league needs to reassess the coaching cycle?
Yes, 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 and yes. And by the way, if I wasn't clear, yes. And this is something I believed going back to my years in the league. Look, there are some limitations, little limitations, meaningless in my view, limitations in place as to when you can talk to a coach whose team is in the playoffs, which week you can do it. In my view, no team should be allowed to interview a coach for a team or a coach who is with a team that is in the playoffs. If you are in the playoffs working for Team A, I don't care how hard you're working for Team A. If you're also preparing for an interview with Team B and then interviewing with Team B, you are taking time, energy, and effort away from your work for Team A. I don't think it's right, and I think it has to be fixed. Look, what does a team want more than anything? What does a team work for from the off season through the preseason through the season? Getting into the playoffs. The last thing you want as a team is for one of your coaches to be spending any time or effort interviewing for another team. And to all the people who have said to me when I've raised this in the past, and all the people who will say now, but Amy, then, it ruins the calendar. Well, you know what? Fix the calendar. Push free agency back a bit. Push the draft back a bit. And to anyone who wants to say that's too hard, We figure out a way to put men and women on a space station and let them live in space. We can figure this out. Coaches should not be able to interview with a team while their team is in the playoffs.
That's a great point. Point blank, for sure. It's crazy because I have no idea how you focus on the task at hand, which is the postseason. Now, speaking of the playoffs, a few teams dealing with a load of injuries right now into January. The Chargers are one of those teams. We saw them rest a lot of guys, though, Week 18. Smart move, in your opinion?
Very, very, very smart, particularly with respect to Justin Herbert. He fractured his hand in week 13, had surgery. And let me tell you a moment about an injury like that and a surgery to follow the injury. What a lot of people don't realize is that players play through far, far, far greater pain than most people realize. I've been in that training room. I've been with players pregame and postgame when they're playing injured. Players play with a lot of pain. Resting Justin was so, so, so smart. It's my understanding that this week was the first week since that surgery after week 13 that he actually was able to take snaps under center in practice. Smart, smart, smart for them to sit him, and now they've got to protect him. They've given up, I believe it is the second most sacks in the league, and look, tremendous, tremendous injuries on the offensive line. I understand why they've given up the sacks they had, but it's not okay. Leave a tight end into block. Leave a running back into chip block. We once left a teeny weeny little running back in. He was nothing more than a speed bump. But you know what? He helped prevent sacks. I almost said snacks. Sacks. So protect Justin. Sitting him was a great idea.
Amy Trask, always great to see you. Incredible perspective, as always. You know, we need to start using the send a man to the moon space reference more often, I think, when comparing things. Thank you so much.
You're welcome to do so.
Yes, I will. I'm going to steal that one out of your books. Amy Trask joining us here live on CBS Sports Network. The postseason is here, and a ton of eyes will be on this wild card clash between the Bills and Jags. Maybe the best wild card game, in my opinion. Jacksonville, not a team to be overlooked, but the Bills have the recent success and an MVP quarterback. It all gets underway on CBS, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Sunday.